Welcome back to the deep dive, the shortcut to being truly well-informed. Today we're jumping into a really practical and frankly spatially complex area of anatomy.
We are. We're tackling surface anatomy and cross-sectional anatomy.
So chapter 12 material, and this feels like a big one.
It's a powerhouse. If you're trying to get past just, memorizing names and really understand the body in 3 dimensions, this is your blueprint.
That's a great way to put it. Our mission today is to give you that mental map. We'll start with the exterior, the landmarks you can actually touch, and then dive inside with cross-sections.
Exactly. And that first part, surface anatomy, is foundational. It's the study of landmarks you can see or feel. It guides every single medical exam, every pulse check.
It's how you find things that are hidden under the skin, under fat.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It's the critical first step.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're starting with section 12.1, a regional approach. And this isn't just about looking, right? It involves actually touching.
Oh, absolutely. The technical term is palpation. You have to feel for these structures, and we do it region by region. So let's start at the top, the head and neck.
What are the anchors there? What's the first thing you can feel?
The bony points are really distinct. You have the zygomatic bone, your cheekbone, the body of the mandible, and the supraorbital margin, right above your eye.
And the chin.
And the mental protuberance, the shin. But clinically, the cartilages are just as key. You can easily feel the C shape of the cricoid cartilage sitting just below the bigger, more prominent thyroid cartilage.
Your Adam's apple.
That's the one.
And I imagine the muscles here really define the landscape.
They absolutely do. You've got the big trapezius muscle, but the sternocleidomastoid, or SCM, is really the star of the show. It's vital to be able to find its two heads, the clavicular and the sternal heads.
Why is that one muscle so important?
Because it's a divider. It splits the whole neck into the anterior and posterior cervical triangles.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Those triangles aren't just for show. The anterior one, especially, is broken down into smaller critical access points.
Yes, exactly. It's subdivided into 4. The supraoid, the submandibular, the superior carotid, and the inferior carotid. And if you're listening, the superior carotid triangle, the SCT, is the one to remember.
That's the pulse point.
That is the standard, easy-to-find spot for palpating the carotid pulse. These triangles are just shortcuts for knowing what's right underneath.
Okay, moving down to the thorax, the chest and upper back. What are the skeletal guides here?
Interiorly, you start at the top. The jugular notch, then the clavicles, and down the middle, the manubrium and the body of the sternum. The bottom of the rib cage is the costal margin.
And on the back?
If you bend your neck forward, that big bump you feel is the vertebra prominence. That's C7. It's your starting point for counting vertebrae. And then, of course, you have the spine of the scapula and its inferior angle.
And the muscles give this whole area its shape.
Definitely. The deltoid muscle capping the shoulder, the big pectoralis major on the chest, and then on the sides, that sort of scalloped look of the serratus anterior.
I see. And on the back?
You've got the huge latissimus dorsi, and what's really cool is the furrow that runs right down the spine. That deep groove is there because of the massive erector spinae muscles on either side. And this all leads directly to a crucial clinical point, using these landmarks to listen to heart sounds.
Right. It's not just about finding the heart in general. You need to know the very specific spots for each valve.
Exactly. You have to know, for instance, that the aortic valve sound is best heard near the right second intercostal space. The pulmonary valve is on the left.
And the other two are lower down.
A bit lower and slightly offset, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Surface anatomy gives you the grid system to make that examination precise.
Let's move to the abdomen. This seems less bony, more about soft tissue.
It is. You look for the linea alba, that fibrous band running right down the midline. The umbilicus, your belly button, is in the center of that.
And the six-pack muscles.
The rectus abdominis. And those horizontal lines, the tendinous inscriptions, are what give it that classic look. Laterally, you have the external oblique muscle.
And what defines the lower boundary of the abdomen?
The bony margins. You've got the xiphoid process up top, the iliac crest on the sides, and the pubic symphysis down below. And critically, the inguinal ligament, which creates that line between the torso and the thigh.
Okay, on to the upper limb, arms. Let's focus on access points.
Well, the shape comes from the deltoid, the biceps brachii, and the three-headed triceps brachii in the back. The bony landmarks are pretty simple. The olecranon, the point of your elbow, and the medial and lateral epicondyles of the humerus.
That front part of the elbow, the cubital fossa, is a major junction.
Oh, it's vital. A protected little triangle where everything important passes through. Nearby at the wrist, we find the spot for the radial pulse, and if you've ever hit your funny bone, That tingling is the ulnar nerve, which is easy to find near that medial epicondyle.
But let's talk about access for something like drawing blood. We're always looking at that cubital fossa.
We are. And the source material points right to the median cubital vein. It's the go-to.
Why that one?
It's usually large, it doesn't roll around, and it's close to the surface. It's a reliable, safe target. That's surface anatomy in action every single day in clinics.
Perfect. Last region, the pelvis and lower limb. Lots of big muscles here.
Huge muscles. We map the iliac crest, the greater trochanter of the femur out on your hip, the patella or kneecap, and the tibial tuberosity right below it. Muscle groups are the gluteus maximus and medius, the hamstrings in the back, and the quadriceps in the front. And a really critical note here is the gluteal injection site. You have to be so careful.
Because of the sciatic nerve.
Because of the massive sciatic nerve. You have to aim for the superior lateral quadrant of the gluteal region to make sure you avoid it. Your surface landmarks define that safe zone.
And just like in the neck, there's another important triangle in the upper thigh.
The femoral triangle. Its boundaries are key. The inguinal ligament on top, the sartorius muscle on the side, and the adductor longus muscle medially.
And why is that space so important?
The femoral artery runs right through it, so it's a major site to find a pulse, but it's also a crucial access point for cardiologists to thread catheters up into the cardiovascular system.
Wow, and then finishing up down at the ankles and feet.
We focus on the bony knobs of the ankle, the medial and lateral malleoli, and the big calcaneal or Achilles tendon. And for pulses, you have two key spots: the dorsalis pedis artery on the top of the foot and the posterior tibial artery just beyond that inside ankle bone.
A quick check on those tells you a lot about circulation.
A huge amount. And one last clinical point before we shift gears, the lumbar puncture. To get cerebrospinal fluid, you have to insert the needle between vertebrae L4 and L5, or L5 and S1, any higher, and you risk hitting the spinal cord itself.
That's a perfect pivot from the external map to the internal model. Let's talk section 12.2, cross-sectional anatomy. This is where it gets tough, mentally picturing these 3D relationships from a flat slice.
It is, and this whole field was really revolutionized by things like the Visible Human Project, which gave us thousands of these high-res images. What's fascinating here is that you can't just look at a CT scan or an MRI and know what you're seeing. There is a standard non-negotiable viewing method.
So there's a visual language you have to learn first.
You do. First, you have to assume they're inferior view images.
Meaning,
imagine you are standing at the patient's feet, looking up toward their head.
okay, so the front of the body's at the top of the screen, the back is at the bottom.
Exactly. But here is the part that trips everyone up at first. It's the flip. Structures on the right side of the body appear on the left side of the image.
It's mirrored, like you're facing the patient.
Precisely. Understanding that right is left reversal is the absolute foundation of reading diagnostic images.
Okay, let's use that framework. Let's tour a few key levels, starting high up in the head at the level of the optic chiasm. What do we see?
At this level, you can really see how tightly packed everything is. You see the optic chiasm and the optic tracts right next to the cerebral cortex and the hippocampus.
Yeah.
You also see how close these delicate brain structures are to things like the ethmoidal air cells. There's just no wasted space.
Let's go down a bit, into the neck. The level of vertebra C2, the axis.
Here you see that critical relationship between the spinal cord and the body of C2. It's nestled right in there. And running alongside it are the major vessels going to the brain, the internal jugular vein, and the internal carotid artery.
All surrounded by muscle.
All surrounded by layers of muscle, like the sternocleidomastoid and trapezius. It really shows you how little room there is for error, for swelling or injury.
Okay, now into the core. The thorax at vertebra T8. This is the heart and lungs, right?
This is maybe the most impressive cross-section. The heart is just dominant in the center. You can clearly see the right ventricle, the left ventricle, the septum between them. You can even make out the right AV or tricuspid valve.
And the lungs are just wrapped around it.
They're wrapped right around it. You can see the different lobes of the left and right lungs, separated by their fissures. And then tucked behind everything, right up against the vertebra, are the esophagus and the massive thoracic aorta. It's a stunning picture of density.
Dropping down to the abdomen, level of T12. This is the big organ territory.
It is. The right lobe of the liver just dominates the upper right quadrant. You see the spleen over on the left, you see parts of the colon, and you see the kidneys. You can even spot the renal artery and vein on the left kidney.
And the aorta and vena cava, those huge vessels.
They are deep and posterior, running right along the spine. It confirms just how protected they are. And you still see all the layers of muscle from the rectus abdominis in front to the psoas major in the back.
All right, one last slice. down in the pelvis at L5.
Now we're deep in the GI tract. You can see parts of the ileum and cecum, the descending colon, and the bony structures are huge here.
They frame everything.
Completely. The slice is bordered by the ilium and the sacrum. It shows how rigid and stable the pelvic base is, and you still see massive muscles like the iliacus inside and the gluteus maximus and medius forming the outside contour. If we connect this to the bigger picture, this chapter gives you two things. Surface anatomy is your physical map for doing things, for injections, for pulse checks. But cross-sectional anatomy, that gives you the three-dimensional mental model you need to understand what's really going on inside.
You've really just taken us on a journey from, feeling your own chin all the way through the heart valves and deep into the pelvis.
Yeah.
This isn't just memorization. It really is about building that ability to visualize the human body.
It's a totally different way of seeing.
So what does this all mean? I think the most profound thing here is that learned visual language of clinical imaging. That protocol anterior on top right on the left, it's a deliberate cognitive flip. It's not natural.
Not at all.
We encourage you to really think about how that required reversal of left and right becomes this fundamental part of medical communication, how it builds accuracy in a high-pressure situation where a mistake is, well, it could be devastating.
It's a language that saves lives. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the geography of the human body.
From the Last Minute Lecture team, thanks for listening.